Hey everyone, thought you'd never see me again, didn't you? Well, too bad. You have to put up with me for a little bit longer now. A little under a year ago, I had an idea of going through every one of my country contests after I finished Soil of Destruction Reboot, and making a commentary about them. This would include me talking about the early development of the series, cancelled ideas, community involvement, etc. I'm going to be kicking this off with my very first country contest, the Supreme Lands 1. If you guys enjoy this kind of stuff, let me know in the comments. I'll be doing Supreme Lands 2 next. You might be wondering, how the hell did I come up with this? Well, if you think I got inspired by another mapper to make country contest, that, my friend, is wrong. A lot of my viewers don't know this, but I had an alternate future of Canada series. No, I'm not talking about that. It looked a little more, well, I deleted the videos, so I can't show you a map, but the map quality was similar to the early episodes of TSL 1. How does this relate to the story, you may be wondering? Because TSL 1 as we know it might not have happened at all because of Alternate Future of Canada. Although I don't remember that much about my old Alternate Future of Canada, I remember that it and TSL were both going on at the same time. At the time, having two series was a bit overwhelming for me. Keep in mind, this was 2017 and the only series I'd done yet was Alternate Future of Papers, Please. Basically, when I was making both TSL 1 and AFOC, I wanted to only focus my attention on one of them. AFOC was an idea I had before I even made my channel, but TSL was unique because it was my own map I forged and my viewers submitted the countries. It wasn't a hard choice, so I picked TSL to make, and I recreated Alternate Future of Canada and finished it last year. I can't remember for certain, but I'm pretty sure I did start TSL before AFOC, so that was another factor that led me to pick TSL as my sole focus. The Supreme Lands 1 to me has somehow aged better than some of my other country contests, despite that it's the oldest, and has the lowest map quality and most frequent dialogue errors. I feel the same way about Alternate Future of Papers, Please. Maybe it's the nostalgia blinding me, but I didn't say that TSL 1 was good by any means. I first had the idea for TSL 1 in early July of 2017. Like I said before, nobody really inspired me to do it. I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if I made viewers make the countries? So that's how it started. I officially announced the series on the 12th of July, 2017, and my first submission was only 30 seconds after I made the video. I was surprised by this because at the time I only had about 30 subscribers, and wasn't expecting many people to actually submit countries. The first country I got was Poldon, then I asked my brother to make a country, which became Kalia, followed by Sangui, Xerodon, and so forth. It took about a week until I was satisfied with the amount of submissions I got, which was 12 countries. I actually didn't even have a name for the series until literally while I was uploading episode 1. In the video I had the Democratic Coalition say, "Welcome to the New World," which wasn't the original name. I just said that because, well, it was a new world. But that certainly wasn't the only name crisis. Countries like the FGU and the Protectorate Union had spelling errors. It wasn't the most organized thing ever, but I didn't have many countries to deal with, unlike many of my later country contests. Just a reminder, this was only my second mapping series, so some things are absolutely god-awful. Notably, the dialogue. I mean, to be fair, I see some mappers have terrible dialogue too, but those people are usually very young. I was 13. I have friends that are 13 and write leagues better than this. Now, that being said, there are some things I really love about this series. First of all, it laid the foundation for all of my country contests that came after it, and of course I wasn't going to start off with a banger of a series. Secondly, I liked how everything connects together. With this only taking place on one continent, a war impacted everybody. And there was only 12 countries in the beginning, making it easy to remember most of them. And most importantly, in my opinion, TSL 1 had the best map. Even though this exact map returned in TSL 2, I personally prefer just one continent with a few countries. In the earlier life of this series, I wasn't entirely certain where I wanted to go with the overall plot. I was in control of all of the countries for the majority of the series, unlike my later series where the country creator would influence all of its decisions. I started episode 1 off with 2 wars. I knew I would be going somewhere with this, but my destination was uncertain. But by the end of episode 2, I knew I'd be aiming for a world war. This seems like a decent hook, but the problem was, this discussion happened between Zerodon and the Protectorate. It seems like it would make sense, since the Protectorate was buying Varen's Island, but in the likely event that you forgot, Zerodon did not partake in most of the World War. Instead, it could have just been the Protectorate talking to himself. The dialogue of Zerodon insisting that they'd help against Liberatia was redundant because they didn't join at the beginning of the World War in the first place. This is further pushed by the fact that in Episode 3, Liberatia and the Protectorate had another war. Zerodon did nothing. In retrospect, there is absolutely zero events in Episode 2 that matter to the rest of the series. You could honestly just skip this episode and not miss anything. Episode 3 saw the formation of the Vassian Empire, which would lead to be the start to the path of World War I. Zerodon lets Vassia have Varen's Island after they declared independence from the Protectorate, which again is furthering that the path of Zerodon went on when the series was completely unorganized. In case you forgot, I'll explain why later. Episode 4 was when I brought in coastal shading to slightly improve the quality of the map, and it was also the first time I ever did an animation, and while the visual quality is pretty terrible, the animation is decently smooth. The attempted assassination was my version of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand assassination, which started World War I in real life. And looking back, I think there's too many parallels when it comes to this war's outbreak and our own real-life World War I. The Lowlands allowing the Protectorate to join the war was also something that should have been treated differently, because previously the Lowlands denied aid to the Protectorate over a war that happened before the series began. While I think it's interesting to shed some light on the history of that world, the previous statement Lowlands made is now rendered redundant among other events in this series. Episode 5 was the first and one of the only times I focused in on a smaller area for a conflict that didn't entirely revolve around mapping. I still think that doing this was unique, but the timing of the event was strange. Episodes in TSL took place over the course of 6 months, and the fact that this event, which only lasted a couple days in series time, was the entirety of the first 6 months of the war. It would be so much better if I had started advancements in the other fronts. Episode 6 would be the first time I changed my country ball style, and I used that style for quite a while. This episode also introduces Slava and Osechka, and Osechka was basically intended to be the Joseph Stalin. My intention was to have everyone fear Osechka, and when Osechka finally would declare war, the Central Union and the Saliago Pact would have to team up to defeat Osechka. This didn't happen for reasons I will get into later. This episode also suffers from timing issues. The only advancements for the majority of the episode are on the Polish front. Only until the very end of the episode did the Central Front actually start having advancements, nearly a year into the war. Another thing this series and a lot of my old series suffer with is the amount of ceasefires. The reason there were so many of them is because the war frames used to be a lot quicker, which would mean if I wanted an entire episode to be war frames, it would take a really long time, so I just decided to have multiple ceasefires. Episode 7 was the first time a country was defeated in the entire series. I was absolutely terrified of the feedback I would get over this, but in my later series, countries die all the time, and I was just way more anxious about it back then. Zerodon also joined the Central Union this episode. I already stated this, but I was just really lost when it came to Zerodon, and I didn't even realize it. A bit after I released Episode 7, I was invited to join a Discord server by the creator of the Vassian Empire. I joined, and him and the creator of Sangui were talking about the series. A few minutes after I joined, the Protectorate joined, and I still remain good friends with Vassia and the Protectorate to this day. Later that day, I announced my own Discord server, and some new people that were countries in TSL joined, notably Liberatia, the Lowlands, and Slava. Some other people who weren't in TSL also joined, and quickly, people started to ask if the sequel was going to be made after TSL 1. It didn't require much thought, so I gave them a definitive yes. Episode 8 is when it started to become more clear that the Central Union was going to win, after Kalia and the Avion Islands joined the war. Kalia joining the same side as Lowlands was a bit strange, but it wasn't the worst that could happen. Around now is when I would have had Osechka start their conquest, but after the Discord was made, it was pretty set in stone that people did not want their countries to get along with each other, so my idea for Osechka remained secret until last year. In Episode 9, Vassia pulled out of the war because of the Communist Revolution. This was the first time a player had made a decision for their country. Previously, I had been calling all of the shots. I didn't exactly like that this happened, and it wasn't relevant to the lead-up of TSL 2, but regardless, it was a killing blow for the Saliago Pact, and the Central Union won. It wasn't the worst world war I've ever done on my channel, but it struggled a lot with the timing of events, and the logic wasn't that great. I know mapping isn't supposed to be realistic, but I still think that political relations between countries should make some sort of sense. After it ended, the topic of the community was a Season 2, and I had already got submissions from it as early as episode 8 of season 1. It wasn't even a week that I began TSL2, and I got more submissions than I did for season 1 in a smaller window of time. This series used to be my favorite for a long time, but back when I decided to go through all of my series and rank them, it was clear that this was not the best. I think that it had some strengths in some areas, mainly with how simple it was, but TSL 1 isn't that great of a series in my opinion. I'm glad I made this though, because the mistakes I made with old series are the ones that make my newer ones better. TSL 1 also saw the beginning of the Discord community, and would lead to country contests being almost entirely player controlled. I'm going to insert a few interviews I did with some people that were in TSL 1 to see what their thoughts and experiences were during the development of the series. My first question is, what do you think of your involvement as a country in TSL 1?
I liked my involvement as a country. I think since it was my start, I got off on like it was new for like everyone at the time,
Yeah.
especially me. It was my first time I was ever on Discord.
Mm-hmm.
But as my contributions as a country, I feel like I definitely left a mark as like one of the major
Yeah,
powers.
yeah, definitely, I agree.
I didn't really do much.
Suppose it was fun, and it got me into this community, the mapping community. I think it was a good impact overall.
I had regrets. I did like selling guns to everyone, but I do have regrets because I joined the Central Union for no reason, but it was fun.
Where do you think that the series struggled the most?
I Since we are all sort of new at everything, I could say like the logic of
Yeah.
everything.
I don't really know. I think the thing was pretty much balanced overall.
Probably the kind of attitude people had going into it, because a lot of people came into it thinking it would be easy, and they were kind of toxic about it. Well, like Lowlands was kind of toxic, but
Mm-hmm.
besides that, I kind of think that maybe the series struggled a little bit with its, you know, keeping the plot like intertwined.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe Osechka.
Where do you think that it shined the most?
Where it shined the most. I think it was just a fun time to be part of this. It was so new and interesting and fun to do and be a part of.
Probably the atmosphere it gave off. It was, and also it kind of introduced a lot of new ideas to the mapping community, which can't be overstated. It's kind of started a genre, so it's uh it's mainly the idea itself is where it shines the most.
I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was around when the war really started off. Kind of enjoyed that part in like the mini naval battle that happened.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And what was your early experience in the community like?
It was very fun. There was only probably like I don't remember exactly how many, but I think it was only like 10 or so of us.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much it was kind of fun just like talking about how we were supposed to do everything and such. There wasn't
Mm-hmm.
as much pressure as there was in like later series.
The Discord was great. It was mostly friendly. Everybody was coming into it as a noob. There was no
Mm-hmm.
questions of bias or anything because it was so new.
I guess it was. I don't really remember much, but it was initially a little frantic, but it
Yeah.
kind of settled down.
And my last question is, do you think that the series has aged well compared to my new ones?
Honestly, I've used this comparison before a lot, but I'd compare TSL 1 to like the NES. The NES was great and
Mhm.
amazing, but like there's so many new things like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
Pug and Sodar especially things like that definitely
Like if you
outclass it.
you can definitely tell its age and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's aged very well in my opinion.
I think it's aged pretty well. It's mostly positive,
Mhm.
and it's basically what started all of this.
They say you're your own worst critic, and when it comes to this, it feels like that's the case. Out of the 3 people from TSL1 I interviewed, they all say that the series has aged well. While I disagree with that for the most part, I think it's aged better than some of my old series. That just about concludes everything I have to say about my TSL1 retrospective. Thanks for watching, everyone. Next time I'll be making a commentary about TSL2, so stay tuned for that.